Greetings and a warm welcome to all participants at the EA Global Summit 2023, Day 2. I'm Anup, part of the EAGS organizing team. It gives me great pleasure to greet each and every one of you in this virtual setting, where Sparx EA users from every corner of the world are coming together to learn, collaborate, and share their invaluable experiences. Whether you're a seasoned expert in the world of Sparx EA or just embarking on your journey, rest assured that this summit holds something exceptional in store. Our roster has an impressive lineup of distinguished speakers, true luminaries in Sparx EA community, eager to share their wealth of knowledge. Today's session will feature Gillian Adams from Hippo Software, who will enlighten us on Enterprise Architect and ArchiMate for large-scale enterprise architecture. However, please keep in mind that this session goes beyond mere presentations. It's a platform for fostering collaboration. We encourage you to fully leverage the networking opportunities, connect with fellow attendees, and engage with our speaker after the session in our vibrant Slack community. In case you missed your Slack invite, you can join the discussion by following the link provided in the chat box. We'd like to express our sincere gratitude to all our speakers and attendees for being the part of the EAGS 2023. Furthermore, we wholeheartedly encourage you to ask your questions. You can utilize the Q&A window in the GoToWebinar screen for this purpose. Our speaker will address a selection of questions at the session's conclusion and will continue the conversation with you directly in Slack. So without further ado, let's hand over the session to the speaker. Gillian, over to you.
Thank you so much, Anu. Just to double check if I am sharing my screen as yet. Excellent. Hello, everyone. I'm absolutely delighted to be invited back to present at the Sparx EA Global Summit 2023. Thanks to Nissan, Dewey, Anup, and all the team for organising this event again this year. I must confess that I've been using Sparx Systems Enterprise Architect since version 2 back in 2003. Almost exactly 20 years ago. So perhaps I'm now one of the EA dinosaurs. For my presentation today, I'm going to talk about using Enterprise Architect combined with ArchiMate for large-scale enterprise architecture. I'm going to focus on the approach taken to create an organization-wide enterprise architecture. We will explore the importance of having a well-defined meta model and set of operational guidelines, and reflect on the need to take an iterative approach to constructing essential viewpoints. These can gradually be combined within our shared central repository to create an holistic understanding of our organization's current and perhaps future architecture. Join our fictional company Flower Power at an important stage in their evolution. Flower Power has grown rapidly over the last few years, aided by the strategic acquisition of other flower growing companies. Lily Fresh, who focus on the funeral market, and Rose Petals, who focus on weddings and christenings. And this has significantly diversified their portfolio of services. However, it has also resulted in a complex set of historical applications with extra tactical interfaces added to permit these applications to share and transfer data. Flower Power would now like to rationalize their application landscape. However, no single person can possibly fully understand the complex set of interfaces, interconnections, and dependencies that now exist. So the management team have appointed a small enterprise architecture team and hired an experienced consulting firm, Hippo, to offer advice and to help them to construct a model of their current application architecture. This will provide valuable input into their decision making about a suitable future application estate. The first recommendation from Hippo is actually to take a step back and consider the audience. What use cases will their stakeholders have for this new enterprise architecture model? To do this, Hippo have built a use case model. Management explain that they wish to understand their existing application architecture landscape at a high level. They need the tools to be able to measure the impact of any changes proposed by their enterprise architecture team. And they want to make informed decisions about how to allocate budget and which projects to authorize. Our enterprise architects, first of all, need to establish some standards and guidelines to ensure a consistent approach is taken by all of the architecture team. They will then start to document their application portfolio, gather information about the interfaces, initially at a high level, but also later on in greater detail. And they need all of this knowledge of their existing applications to permit them to consider all of the options and then to propose solutions, a simplified solution with clearly understood set of changes that they can present to their management. Our enterprise architects will work very closely with a small team of business architects, and our business architects will be tasked to identify and document Flower Power's business processes. They will then map of these processes to the existing roles and departments within the Flower Power organization. As well as rationalizing applications, management wish to simplify and streamline the business processes. And of course, the enterprise and business architects will work together to better understand how the applications support each of the business processes. This will clarify the impact of any changes to be made and allow management to plan training and support for any proposed new solutions. Next, Hippo recommend establishing a metamodel. This is often referred to as an ontology in the systems engineering world. This will help the architects to agree and document the subset of notation, the elements and relationships to include in their model. The goal is to keep the model as simple as possible while still addressing the architecture use cases. This helps to ensure a consistent approach is taken by the full team. All the architects will document their results within the model. It will make it quicker to create, plus easier to maintain and keep accurate, and of course simpler for a wide set of stakeholders to understand. This meta model has been created by Hippo for Flower Power based on their set of use cases. Of course, other organizations with different use cases may require a slightly different meta model. The chosen modeling language here is ArchiMate, a visual notation for modeling enterprise and solution architectures. Hippo recommend using Sparx Systems Enterprise Architect for the modeling effort. Diagrams alone are simply not sufficient. An interconnected model in a case tool environment is absolutely essential to understand and analyze the complex dependencies between people, processes, applications, and interfaces. Furthermore, Prolaborate can be used later on as a front end to publish and visualize all of the model captured within Enterprise Architect. And a combination of diagrams and graphs and charts can be displayed that will add additional meaning and accessibility for a less technical audience. The traditional way of communicating a metamodel is to use a rather technical looking UML class diagram. And although technically correct and a great first step to building their own MDG technology with specialized diagrams, toolboxes, and elements, it's often not the best way to effectively communicate the team's decisions. So instead, Hippo has created this diagram using generic ArchiMate elements and relationships. Can be easily consumed and understood by all parties. Superimposed on top of the elements are boundary boxes showing the extent of each ArchiMate viewpoint. The viewpoints will look at the model from different perspectives and gradually will be combined to build up the holistic model. Using some filters based on keywords, the team are able to focus on each viewpoint one by one. Our business architects will concentrate their initial effort on business process views, mapping business processes to the departments and roles responsible for carrying them out. They will collaborate with the enterprise architects to document which applications support each business process. As we can see, departments are modeled as ArchiMate business actors, which are assigned to ArchiMate business roles. These are in turn assigned to business processes. And then a serving relationship will be used to document which application components support each of the business processes. Enterprise architects will first create a catalogue of application components. These will be modelled as ArchiMate application components, and they will be grouped using aggregation into application categories, modelled as application collaborations. Of course, nesting can be used to simplify the notation on these diagrams. The architects will also create application context views to show the data flow between application components. This will be shown initially at a high level with a flow relationship. Flow relationship shows the direction of data transfer between the applications and is annotated by the type of data at a conceptual level. Applications can then be explored and modeled in greater detail by documenting the nature of each interface. A composition relationship is created from the application component to the application interface, and then a serving relationship is added to show all the applications that use this interface or rely on this interface. All of the information gathered can be combined to create enterprise-wide or project-wide, either high-level application context views or more detailed application interface views. Management can consume all of these diagrams and then make judgments about changes required and projects that need to be kicked off to address these. And these projects can be modelled within the ArchiMate model as well, so that we understand the impact that projects will have on applications, processes, roles, and perhaps even departments. Hippo suggests creating a set of guidelines for each of their standard viewpoints. These guidelines will explain the intended content, purpose, notation, and layout of the viewpoint. So for each standard viewpoint, they create an example diagram containing, again, generic ArchiMate elements and relationships. And these diagrams are annotated to explain the notation in plain English and further explain how the model is going to be created incrementally. It would be possible to put all applications onto a single diagram. In most large-scale endeavours, it would certainly not be advisable. It could certainly not be printed on a single sheet of paper or easily incorporated into any generated documents. Therefore, each aspect of the model needs to be built and maintained incrementally. For example, there will be a set of business process views, each one concentrating on a specific business process or small group of related processes. Likewise, there will be a set of application views, each one focused on a specific application. The application context view shown here is created by placing an application component of focus in the center of the diagram and then surrounding it by any connected applications. Flow relationships are added to the diagram to document the interfaces at a high level and to show the direction of data flow. Flows between peripheral applications can be hidden on this diagram so that we're able to focus application in the center. Of course, multiple applications might be combined later on to create a larger enterprise or project view, and then all the relevant flows can be shown. So now the real work starts. The enterprise architects initially start to build up a number of application category views to catalogue all the Flower Power applications, as well as the newly acquired applications from Lily Fresh and Rose Petals. These are grouped by aggregation into functional categories. Nesting is used on the diagram to avoid any unnecessary technical notation and make these diagrams very accessible to a wide range of stakeholders. Due to their growth by acquisition, it is very likely that they'll have multiple applications in each category, and it's likely that these will also overlap in terms of features. So there's a real opportunity here to identify and implement streamlining of the application landscape. The application is given a short description in the notes window, and then a set of custom properties, tagged values, can be added to the application to collect all the different bits of information that might be relevant to that application. So for example, we might enter the current version of the application, the company that sells the application, and the life cycle stage of our application. There could be many other custom properties that would be very useful to have on each of our applications, and additional tagged values can be added to reflect these. And of course, if you want to show these on the diagram in the catalogue, we can simply add a note to our diagram, then use that special feature to extract the tagged values out onto the diagram. I was very pleased to notice earlier in the Global Summit when Nissan was presenting on the Application Portfolio Management Accelerator Pack that they already have a number of predefined tagged values in place, and that the Metamodel that they're using is very similar to the one that we have established here for Flower Power. So this means that we'll be able to very rapidly map to the accelerator pack and rapidly produce a Prolaborate front end for Flower Power to consume all of their diagrams and to create nice graphs and charts based on the data in their model. So our architects are now going to create context views for each of the applications. One diagram focused on each application. The main application, the Flower Power sales application in this example, is placed in the center of the diagram. And all the applications that interface with the sales application are placed at either side of it. So we have one other application to go and add from our finance area, our invoicing application. You'll notice when we drag and drop this onto the diagram, there are already existing flow relationships within the model, and these automatically appear. Any of the peripheral interfaces can simply be hidden. We can do this manually, or we could write a very simple script to hide all of the peripherals. Tidy up the other flows and text, and we have our diagram. And once this diagram has been populated, we can use a very handy, fairly new feature in EA, Freeze Visible on the diagram. And this ensures that no additional flows will appear on this diagram automatically. We can now go back to our application category diagram, and we can turn the application into a composite element. Selecting the appropriate application context diagram and allowing our audience to very easily navigate from the catalogue down to the context diagram for this application. It's very important to build in navigation to your model. That can be a combination of composite elements, navigation cells, and hyperlinks to allow stakeholders to jump from one diagram to another with ease. They should never get stuck when they're navigating around your model. It could be helpful to have a diagram legend and use that to auto-color the applications. So, for example, we could go to our library of diagram legends and drag and drop the life cycle stage legend onto this diagram. And you'll see that that automatically color codes all the applications based on their lifecycle stage. This is simply done by adding a diagram legend that applies auto color, filtering the legend to any of your standard properties, or in this case to a custom tagged value, and then entering possible values and associating it with an appropriate color coding. And of course, that legend can sit in a library and be reused on any of our other application context views. Gradually and incrementally build up each of these application context views focused on individual applications, we can now build overarching enterprise context views or specific project context views by simply dragging and dropping the appropriate applications onto a larger diagram and revealing all of the data flows between them. And these views will provide Flower Power Management team with the information that they require to understand dependencies between applications and make informed decisions about changes required. Our enterprise architects may need to go down into more detail, and they can start to create a set of application interfaces views. Again, starting off by modeling each application in turn. And as a quick start, they could copy and paste their application context view. As long as they do a paste as a shallow paste of the diagram, it will reuse exactly the same applications. They can then simply hide all of the flow relationships, the high-level ones. And again, this could be done manually or facilitated by a very simple script. In fact, many of these diagrams that we're looking at could be auto-generated using a script. So once they've identified all the interfacing applications, they can start to document the nature of the interfaces in a lot more detail. As we can see, a composition relationship is used to indicate which application provides a particular interface. But that sort of notation looks very technical and detailed on a diagram. So as before, we have used nesting to hide the composition and make the diagram much easier to view and consume. We then have serving relationships from the interface to the applications that would require to use that interface. Our interfaces can be documented in detail. We can have a description associated with each interface. And just like we did with the applications, we can have some custom properties created for each of our interfaces as well. And that could provide lots of very useful information about the nature of the interface. Perhaps things like the frequency of the interface, the mechanism that might be used, and more detail perhaps on the timing of that particular interface. Again, we shouldn't rely on color. All of the detail is in the descriptions of the interface behind the scenes and can be extracted and used in documents that we generate, or even better, in graphs and charts that we create in Prolaborate to illustrate this, this model. However, it can be helpful even on a diagram, just to have a little bit of colour to focus in on certain key bits of information. So for example, we could drag and drop our frequency diagram legend across onto the diagram and immediately reveal the frequency of each of our interfaces by using some colour coding. Of course, the detailed analysis down at this level will undoubtedly reveal some additional information that may have to be reflected back into the application context view. This is very often an iterative process, and hyperlinks could be added to your diagram to allow you to navigate up to the context view and then very rapidly navigate back down into the detailed interfaces view. We could even create project-wide interfaces views with all the applications involved in a project. And this can be created by simply dragging and dropping the applications and the appropriate interfaces onto a larger project-wide diagram. And this might be very helpful to team members that need to understand the current implementation so that they can make either tactical or even strategic changes to the application landscape. Hippo is also guiding the business architects. And our business architects are creating a set of business process views. And these views will focus on each high-level business process and its immediate sub-processes, connecting each of them to the appropriate roles and departments responsible for their implementation. If required, business analysts could, of course, take each of these business processes in the architecture model and create a detailed BPMN diagram to document the individual steps, decisions, and responsibilities within the process. And this is something that we very often encourage business analysts to do. They could add a composite link from the high-level ArchiMate process down to the detailed BPMN diagram and a hyperlink to then navigate back up into the architecture views. So once we've identified and documented all of the business processes, our business and enterprise architects can work together to add applications into these process views. And again, we need to simply add our final finance application into this view, along with a serving relationship to connect that application to the process that it supports. All of the connections that we've created between departments, roles, processes, applications, and their interfaces can be explored using the traceability window in Enterprise Architect. In fact, this is one of Hippo's favourite windows in EA. We can select, for example, a business process, go to the traceability window, and we can immediately see all of the applications that are supporting that process. We can also see any associated business processes, and we'll be able to see the roles or departments that are connected to that particular process as well. And if you've connected up the projects, then they'll be able to see what projects might be affecting that particular process as well. If we click on an application component, we are given a similar view. We can see all of the processes that this application is supporting. We can see all of the connected applications. We can also see the detailed interfaces that are being used or provided by this application. And as you can imagine, all of these relationships are absolutely ideal input to allow us to create helpful graphs and charts in Prolaborate. So things like a nested pie chart or a landscape view could be created super fast out of this information and out of these connections. We even have a relationship matrix in EA that we can utilize as well. So we can go off to the relationship matrix and set up our own matrix profiles. So this particular profile is looking at having our business processes as the source. So we're extracting all of the business processes out of our business architecture library. And as the target, we've extracted our application components out of our application architecture library. And then we're able to highlight with the green arrows the serving relationships that currently exist between our applications and our processes. So this gives us a very succinct way of cross-referencing the elements in our model and also checking for completeness. So from the options, we can highlight any elements that are missing relationships. And we'll see that we can now very easily spot gaps using the relationship matrix. And of course, we could add additional new serving relationships into the model. We've only just started the journey with Flower Power, and we're taking an iterative approach to modeling all of our applications and all of our business processes. And therefore, we do still have some gaps to be documented. This matrix is, of course, a generic tool, and it could be set up to understand other connections in the model as well. We could have a matrix to map business processes to roles, or to map maybe interfaces to applications as well. So Hippo has also recommended creating a special view for our projects, and this we're calling the project on a page view. And this allows senior management to understand the nature of each of the projects that are underway or planned at Flower Power. This will be populated with all of the applications that might be part of the project, impacted by the project, and all of the business processes, roles, and departments that will be impacted by this project. To keep this diagram simple and uncluttered, all of the associations have been hidden on the diagram, and this was simply done by going into the diagram properties, going to the connectors page, and hiding all of the relationships. So now we have a holistic picture for our specific project, and we're able to then understand the impact that projects might have on applications. We could go to an application and we could see if multiple projects were running, that there might be an impact across multiple projects. And of course, these sorts of views will allow project managers and team members to be aware when there might be an impact between multiple projects on the same application or the same business process, thus hopefully ensuring a healthy dialogue between those project teams. And these views will also allow management to better understand the communications and the training that would be required for each role and department within their organisation. And of course, that's a super important aspect of any transformational change that might be happening within a business. It's not just about the technology, it's not just the detail of the interfaces, it's also the knock-on effect on business processes and on people within the organisation. And very important to communicate all of that and allow appropriate support to occur. So that brings us very nicely to the end of today's presentation. I'm hoping it's given you a bit of an insight into the support that Enterprise Architect provides for ArchiMate, and to allow you to very incrementally build up your whole enterprise solution, and also to take a project focus. So iteratively and incrementally building up the model to create that complete interconnected model for your entire organisation. And of course, if you would like to learn more about ArchiMate, or if you would like our assistance in a consulting capacity, please do visit our website and get more information. We do public webinar training as well as on-site traditional training as well. It's been fantastic to spend some time with everyone and to share our thoughts on an approach for an enterprise-wide ArchiMate model. And I'd be delighted to take any questions that there might be at the moment, or of course join you on Slack to answer your questions there.
Thank you very much, Gillian, for sharing your insights with us today. I also want to extend my sincere appreciation to our attentive and engaged audience. Your active participation has been commendable. If you have any questions or would like to explore this topic further, we established a dedicated Slack channel. This is a unique opportunity to engage with our speakers, express your thoughts, and participate in substantive discussions. And if you haven't already accessed the meeting room on Slack, kindly do so through the link provided in the chat box. Our speaker is, as mentioned, eager to extend the dialogue and address your queries, so please do not hesitate to join the conversation in the meeting room. Once again, we thank you all for your active engagement, and we eagerly appreciate your presence in this Slack channel, as well as in our impending sessions throughout the summit. Thank you all. And there have been quite some questions in the Slack. I can see there's a question from Steffi, who's asking, what is the best practice to handle as-is and to-be state architecture in the same model?
Oh, fantastic question, and not the simplest of ones to answer. We actually had a whole afternoon workshop style debate about this very topic at the EA user group in the UK earlier this year. And we had some fantastic presentations. So there's a variety of different options there. It's probably one of my favourite consulting topics. You can, of course, try to do everything in a single model and just use the browser to segregate your as-is and to-be models. You do have to be aware that if you're reusing elements from the architecture, like applications in multiple diagrams, that you're still creating new connections between those elements. So you have to make a decision quite early on about how to manage that. And there's different approaches, and some will work better for some organizations than others. You can keep the future state architecture as a completely separate model by doing deep copies from the current as-is model, making changes, playing around with ideas, And then once you have decided on your recommended solution, roll back the changes into the as-is model. So that keeps the as-is model nice and clean and unaffected by your to-be proposals, but it does create a little bit of work afterwards to do that rollback. And the danger, of course, is that that doesn't happen and then the as-is model becomes out of date. Another approach is to put all of the changes into the same model, have an evolving model, but then you need to have very clear information tagged to each of the elements to explain whether something is being newly introduced or is live in the model, or perhaps is reaching its end of life. And you can then use these status tags to determine what should go onto each diagram, whether applications should appear in the as-is diagram or be hidden from that diagram. So a little bit more complexity there, but it does mean that you don't then have to do that rollback afterwards. Another shout out I should probably make is to some of the partners that provide solutions for these types of complex scenarios. So Ian Mitchell from Ability Engineer, they have a new product called Portfolio Manager that is aimed precisely at this situation and provides quite a simple way of managing different possible future landscapes and the rollback into as-is. So that might well be worth looking into. And then the team at Liber, they also provide Lemon Tree, which allows you to potentially, branch off and create different models and then incorporate them back into the central branch. Theirs is a bit more sophisticated, maybe focused more at the the kind of programming developer type of audience rather than the architecture audience. But again, it's a possibility. And then there's lots of mechanisms built into EA that can help you with this type of situation. So there's things like baselining and showing differences. There's time-aware models, and each of these perhaps needs to be considered as a possible solution or part of the solution. So I'm really sorry, but there isn't a simple answer to that question. It's quite a tough one in just about any case tool environment. So yeah, to talk to your favorite consultant would be my suggestion.
Thanks, Julian. There's yet another question. It's from Robert Ackerby. What is your recommendation on how to describe, for instance, changes to the applications, data flow or application interfaces, adding or removing data flows or application interfaces?
Yeah, so I think it's a similar answer, Robert. Certainly, my suggestion would be that the project views could be annotated to explain the changes that might be occurring during a project. So you could add maybe change elements into the project view and attach them to the interfaces, maybe color code interfaces that are being added and ones that are being removed in different colors. So that would just require that you have either use a standard status property or your own custom tagged value to capture that information, and then you could use a diagram legend to highlight that on the diagram. But I think a little bit of annotation, even a note or a change element, goes a long way as well, because it's not just what's changing that's important, it's the justification for that change. So why is the project making this change? And that could be equally important to understand.
And there's another question as well. So it's from Negin. He asks, is it possible that an element or an application select two different values for one tag? For example, if we want to say that an application is operating in 2 countries using a defined countries tag, how do we use that?
Now that's an interesting question, Megan. I think straight off the top of my head, the best way to do that would perhaps be to have an element in your model that represents the countries. So you could have the different countries modeled somewhere in your EA model, and you could pick whatever element you feel best represents that. And then as a tagged value, you can have what's called a GUID ref tagged value, which allows you to navigate the model and pick an element of a particular type. So you can actually have a list of those. So you could go into your custom property, you could navigate the model and pick one or more countries as elements, and they would then become tagged onto your element. That's probably one of the ways of doing it. Of course, you could also, if you made it an element in the model, just do it via relationships with that country element as well, have an association or an appropriate relationship there.
Thank you very much, Gillian. And ladies and gentlemen, the rest of the questions will be moved to Slack, and we can freely discuss with the speaker in there. And if you still haven't joined our Slack community, please use the link in the description and the questions tag, and you can join the session right away, or you can share your email ID so that we can add you to the stream. Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you so much. I'll see you all in Slack.